Have you ever wondered what it's like to work for Elon Musk? Well, now is your chance to find out, because today we'll be speaking to Valkyrie Holmes. She works for a company that is out of this world. Literally. Yes, I'm talking about SpaceX. Outside of working at SpaceX, Valkyrie is a piano teacher, podcast host, and math tutor. She's also the co-founder of Project Firefly, a new and improved way of containing wildfires by combining drone technology with pressurized air cannons. If that sounds impressive, wait till you hear that she also recently completed an apprenticeship at MIT and an internship at NASA. Oh, and did I mention that she's only 17 years old? Valkyrie, it's a pleasure to have you on the JobbyCast.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me on.
So, Valkyrie, when I was 17 years old, I was stocking shelves at a grocery store, and I think playing basketball with my friends outside. So, tell us how you got here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I recently turned 18, and I kind of started everything around when quarantine hit. At 16, like 15, 16, I was kind of in that slump. I had noticed that every few months I would get into this groove where I would do really well, and then I would have months where I just couldn't do anything at all. And so when quarantine hit, I was in the couldn't do anything at all kind of state. And so it gave me a little bit of a chance to take more long walks. I started recording myself, which is kind of where my podcast originated from. And all of it kind of spiraled into me trying to figure out what I stood for, what I valued, who I even was. And I think, I hesitate to say that quarantine was a good thing for me, just because I know that so many people had a lot of hardships, and even us, we've lost a lot of people that are near and dear to us. In terms of just personal growth, however, it was just so monumental, and especially being in a place like Vegas, we're ranked 49th out of the 50 states for a reason in education. So it gave me more of a chance to explore what I really liked doing, and online learning kind of helped me pursue that instead of just being a passive kind of teenager,
Mm-hmm. So for students and recent grads who are listening, how can they work at the world's best companies one day, whether it's SpaceX or another cool company? What skills should they learn, and how should they spend their free time?
Well, I think that a lot of really emerging tech companies and big companies that are making huge strides in technology, specifically math science, biotech, a lot of that stuff. A lot of them are looking for students that have unique interests. So a lot of the time, I think students will focus on what's going to get me into the best college. But considering the fact that Elon Musk himself has said you don't really need college. There's things that you can do to optimize your time in college for sure, but I think employers really value you going out and doing things on your own, you learning things on your own. A big thing that the Knowledge Society teaches us, which is kind of just an outside program, a human accelerator kind of program. A lot of the things that they teach us are essentially you want to be doing projects that you love and that you're genuinely interested in. And you can tell in a job interview when you're talking to someone and they're not really passionate about what they're speaking about. So really, you want to be putting yourself out there in ways that benefit you, and you want to be growing in a way that supports what you want to do in the future. And if that ends up being something completely different than what you do in high school, you'll be in the same boat as a lot of other people, but at least you would have experimented with it instead of paying $80K a year to figure out I don't really want to do that. So it's all about self-exploration. It's all about learning what you want to do, and if that even is something that your personality fits, if you want to be around people, if you don't, that kind of thing. High school helps with it, but it's a self-motivated thing as well.
Okay, now let's talk about SpaceX. So this would be a disappointing podcast if I didn't ask you the most hard-hitting questions. Have you ever had the chance to meet Elon Musk?
Yeah, well, I haven't personally met him. I have seen him on campus. I'm at the Hawthorne location, which is near LA. So I've seen him, have not gotten a chance to speak with him directly. A lot of the interns, especially at Starbase, which is in Texas right now, Elon is there a lot because they're working on Starship, which is essentially like they're trying to make privatized space travel more accessible. So he's kind of working on that kind of thing. But he's been around, so hopefully by the end of my internship, maybe we'll exchange a word or two. So.
So the company mission is stated as making humankind multiplanetary. So how does this look in reality?
I think a big part of making Earth, let's retry that. I think a big part of growing a company to the size and the actual speed at which they produce things like SpaceX, I think a big part of that is making the general public excited about space. And one thing that I have seen throughout my internship and just the people that I talk to all the time is that they are super passionate about the space tech industry in a way that I've never been exposed to. And I think now that SpaceX is kind of moving forward with the reusable rocket idea, they're making it seem like, oh, like this is the new reinvented time for like the space tech age. They're making technology like that more accessible, and right now they've deployed this whole rideshare program where smaller startup companies that are working in space tech can basically fly their prototypes onto this Falcon rocket for a very reduced price than if they were to launch it themselves. And so things like that, they're just making it so much more accessible, and that will really help in terms of making humanity multiplanetary and just increasing the actual interest for being multiplanetary in the first place. Because bottom line is, people aren't going to want to go to space if there's no interest. People aren't going to want to spend money to go to space if we're just kind of droning on the same things over and over again. So just like being new, innovative, bringing more attention to it. Obviously, the CEO is a bit of a mogul in terms of that kind of thing. But yeah, definitely all of those things.
Right, and SpaceX does have quite a big vision and mission. So as an intern, how do you feel like you can contribute to that mission?
Yeah, so when I originally thought about being a SpaceX intern, I did a little bit of research online, and a lot of people will echo the same kind of thing of, you're not running coffee as an intern. You're not organizing documents as an intern. You know what I mean? Like, they make sure that their interns have a select role and that they are contributing to the ecosystem in some way. Like, I can't really talk too much about like the specifics of my work, but I'm reminded constantly that it is something that will help engineers for the next few years. It's going to, like all of the projects that I'm doing are important in the land of SpaceX, and like specifically I'm in Falcon, on the Falcon team. So it's very important for all those like kind of things to keep progressing. And all of the interns will say the same thing. We all feel like we're working on impactful work. We feel like we're making an impact in the actual team. And, being an intern usually has like a negative connotation. But, like we're paid, we're really well taken care of. It's a really great environment to work in. The actual, we can look up like pictures of it online. Like the actual SpaceX Hawthorne headquarters is so sick. Like the fact that I get to take a walk like on my break and just see rockets being built is an insane thing to me. And it's a very cool place to be, I think, for an intern. Not even just the work, but the actual environment that we're placed in.
Can you describe what the SpaceX facility looks like and what it's like to be there?
Yeah, so I'll be very general, but essentially it's there's a ton of cubicles where people mostly do a lot of their work. And we can take people on tours a lot of the time, and never in like the cubicle sections, but we have the whole mission control center in the headquarters, like the full big screen, like movie kind of esque thing. And all of the interns and employees go down, in this little headquarters, like box to watch the actual rockets when they launch. And so we recently had a launch where all of that happens all the time. And there's like a big long stretch where you can basically see engines being built, and you can see the fairings, which is basically the actual casing that protects the payload when it goes up into space. And there's like full construction of like stage 1, stage 2 kind of happening at Hawthorne, but there's like a bunch of different like projects happening. I'm not entirely sure how much I can actually share, but it's essentially just like a factory floor. There's 3D printing rooms over there. We have like a cafeteria on like the first and second floors, so that's like kind of along that stretch. So yeah, that's like a basic outline, I'd say.
So what does it feel like on your first day when you're walking around, you're seeing rockets being built, you're seeing 3D printers, you're seeing basically the future being built right in front of your eyes? What does that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, so when we first got in, we had like an orientation and we were just introduced to a little bit of SpaceX lore, the history, kind of what we would be doing. We took a picture by the booster, and I believe it's the first booster they ever landed is right outside the Hawthorne headquarters. And so when we walk in, we get introduced to our mentors, and they give us a tour of the factory floor. And, it's overwhelming. Like, I'm getting all of this history, I'm getting everything like, all at once, and I'm just nodding like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's cool. Like, I don't really know how to soak it all in. And I'm pretty sure I've had like 5 or 6 tours of the factory floor, and I still I don't know the half of what is going on down there. Like, it's so insane. So, like, walking around there is just crazy, and we have this whole system that we have to figure out in the first week. And really, it's not until halfway through the internship that I even have the hang of everything. There's so much to look up and so much to explore. And there's so many people now that SpaceX is like crazy, crazy huge. So it's definitely an adjustment to the first day.
How would you describe the environment at SpaceX?
It's very... It's a very encouraging but speedy environment, I would say. Like, speedy is like one of the ways that I've described it in the past, and that's mostly just because like everyone is so busy and everyone always has something to do, and I always feel bad asking people for things because I'm like, I know that you have so much on your plate, but it really is kind of just like a give it to me, I'll get it done as quickly as I can, and then move forward. And we've had instances in my projects where we've given something to someone and they literally cannot get it done in the time that we need. So we give it to someone else. And if that can't work, we would give it to someone else. So it's kind of, we're bouncing all around, like in our team, in other teams. I've talked to people in Boca, in McGregor, like out in Florida, there's a bunch of people doing all sorts of things like that. So it's very speedy, but it's very, I'd say a productive environment. I've learned how to multitask to a T, I think. There's a lot going on all at once. Like, there could be a launch going on, and then I have to go to another room and do a test, and then I have to go back. So it's a lot of just like moving around. Maybe chaotic is a good word, but like the scale of chaotic, evil, neutral, good. It's a very chaotic good environment, I'd say.
Gotcha. So what does a day in the life of someone at SpaceX look like?
So essentially, it's I get up and my roommates, I've been going to work with one of them as of right now, and SpaceX is kind enough to give us lift credits to help us kind of like aid getting back and forth because they ship a lot of people out. My roommates, one is from New Jersey, one is from Seattle, and so we use our lift credits, get to work, and we kind of go straight to our cubicles. If I want, I'll get like a little tea or like some kind of fruit in the morning, some kind of breakfast, and then I'll work in my cubicle. It really could be any kind of work, but a lot of it just involves talking to a lot of people, building different things. It really could be anything, honestly. I usually kind of rendezvous with my team at some point, and then around like 1 p.m., I'll usually grab lunch with a friend. We have like a lunch kind of card that's like synced to our ID. So we can just like scan it, get our lunch, and it's just like a $5 like subsidized meal kit kind of thing. And so we'll do that and then have lunch and then just get back to work. And I usually get to work around like 8:15, 8:20, and then leave around like 6-ish.
So I know you have a lot going on, a lot of cool projects. So after your day at work for SpaceX, what's your life like after work?
Yeah, so really when I get home, it's just kind of like I have dinner, I unwind a little bit, take a shower, change, all of that stuff. And a lot of the day is, you remember, I've learned how to multitask, and that's not just with my SpaceX work. It's just like on my lunch, I'm checking emails from Project Firefly. It's good for Project Firefly since we don't do testing in the summer. If we were doing testing, it would be a lot more hectic. But work is a little bit more slow now. It's pretty crazy as soon as I get home, just because I'm trying to do everything at once. And, I also have like people I want to call, like I want to call my boyfriend or my mom, or like, I need to keep up these relationships with people that I love. So it's very chaotic, but I get home and I do some sort of work. I'm usually, like right now, I'm kind of connecting with people because we're aiming to raise in the next year. So a lot of it is just like networking kind of things. And then usually my roommates and I, we started this tradition that we would watch an episode of Love Island every night. So we're into the reality show kick now, which I've never been into, and I'm surprised that I like so much. So that's essentially it, and then I go to bed and do it all over again the next day.
Okay, so you're working at SpaceX, and you're building a startup that you're raising funding for. Describe that. What's your biggest challenge that you faced with that? Or just tell me about the experience.
Yeah, well, we started Project Firefly about a year ago, and since then we've got a partner company that we're doing testing with, and we recently became part of the 776 Fellowship, which is essentially they're helping fund climate tech startups at an early stage. And so that's really exciting, and it's something that I think it's really easy to work on and try and find time for. I always kind of operate under the assumption that, if they wanted to, they would. And I really, really want to keep working on Project Firefly and continuing build it. And we just had a rebrand, and it looks so nice, and I'm so excited about it. And especially after this internship, I'll just be working on it full time, which is such an exciting prospect to kind of like look forward to. And so balancing the two has kind of just been, I'll wake up and I'll do some work on it, and then at lunch I'll do some work on it, and then if I have like a break, I'll work on it. So it's easy to work on something that you're passionate about, I would say. And I think people really notice that you're passionate about it when I speak about it. And I wouldn't be dedicating more of my time to it if I wasn't. So it's just, again, it's chaotic good, I would say.
Thanks. So I'm dying to know about the stories. I want to know first, tell me a story about your experience during work at SpaceX.
I mean, I think like some of the more like fun experiences, like a lot of people wonder about the culture of SpaceX and kind of how that ties into our work environment. And there's a lot of really fun things that I've been able to experience, like one of our team members brought in a chessboard, and we have like a little like table that was made out of this like payload adapter that we basically just put in the middle of our cubicle because it's not for like flight at all. And so we put it in the middle of our cubicle, and he has a chessboard on there. And now we have a huge communal game going between our team and the operations team. That's just like, if you're on the white team, then you move this piece, and then we have like a little marker for it. So it's stuff like that where it's like I come in and we're suffering really bad. We have very little pieces, and I'm just like, damn, this is going to be a long day. So it's stuff like that that's just, it makes working there really fun. And people are really welcoming to ideas like that also. So it's very cool.
How about outside of work? I know there's usually after hours or some sort of camaraderie, and I know SpaceX is a really tight-knit community. So do you have any funny or embarrassing or cool stories from outside work?
Yeah, I mean, there's really there's a great kind of environment for interns specifically. They really make sure that we're well taken care of. And so they put together an event for AVI interns that was basically after work, and we like got paid for all our time to basically go to this place in downtown LA and go axe throwing. Never done that before. Didn't know that was even really like something crazy that people did. But it was really fun. And I have like a video of one of my good friends and I getting it on like the same kind of thing, on the same board. And it's just like a great kind of atmosphere for us to have. And we do like a lot of fun things at Topgolf. Like there's a Topgolf center relatively close to work. We had a get-together for all of the engineering kind of team for Falcon earlier in my internship. We went over to someone's house. We had a barbecue. So there's a lot of really cool things that we've been able to do just as interns, as part of the team. And I feel like we're really valued as part of the team. They don't treat us as any less. So it's a great time.
Be honest, how many throws did it take you on your first toss for axe throwing to actually hit the target?
It's embarrassing. It took me, well, I mean, I don't know if it's that embarrassing. It took me 5 tries to finally land it. And when I landed it, it was on like the second ring. So it's not too crazy, but yeah, I think it was just cool that my friend and we landed it at the same time and we got it on video. So it's like one of my favorite moments, I think, that I've gotten on camera from our whole SpaceX internship experience.
Mm. So I'm sure a lot of your friends ask you what it's like to work at SpaceX. And I think a lot of people maybe have expectations of what it's like there, both from a job perspective and from a company perspective. What would you say one thing that you expected going in was, but ended up being totally different after your first month of working there?
So I think my position is really interesting in the fact that I haven't had any college experience. All the engineering experience that I've had basically comes from my startup and doing my apprenticeship. So a lot of it has to do with just me plugging and chugging, not really understanding like all the fundamentals I think that you would learn in a college environment. And so going into it, I was terrified. I thought, they're going to kick me out. I have no experience in this. Like, I'm going to be alone and I'm just going to be working 24/7, just trying to understand the bare minimum that I could do. But it was completely different. I went into it and, my mentors obviously, like, they knew that I had no college experience. They knew that I had just built things for my startup. And it was just a very welcoming environment. The mentorship process was amazing. And my mentor, Dan, like, he just helped build my knowledge of doing tests, and like everyone on my team was very, very helpful. And they continue to be very helpful. And now that I have at least some level of knowledge on how the whole SpaceX system works, it's all owed to them. And, like technicians that I talk with, and now I'm very comfortable reaching out to people for advice. They just help facilitate all of that when I thought, it's a scary thing to go into a company that is so highly regarded as being like fundamentally different from every other space tech company. And they just made the process really smooth. So that was one thing that was kind of interesting.
Did you ever feel imposter syndrome?
Oh gosh, every day. I still feel like, I'm like, what am I doing here? Like I think that that's a very normal thing. I think every intern, like I talk to them and I'm like, do you ever feel like you're not supposed to be here? And they're like, every day. Like everyone there feels that way because, a lot of them, there's interns and there's associate engineers that are kind of all in the same cohort. And a lot of them, they don't have degrees. They don't know everything there is to know. And one of my roommates, she's done this internship last summer, so she has a little bit of experience. But she still says, like, I was so nervous, and I found out that I really didn't know that much in terms of engineering and what to do. And I got way more experience here than I ever did in my college environment. So I think like the assumption going in is that they expect you to do everything, but they know that you don't know how to do everything because you are just a college student or just recently graduated. You might not have that much work experience, it's a very supportive family, I would say.
So how do you push through the noise when you have imposter syndrome and you're working on stuff that you think is maybe a little bit outside your scope? How do you have the confidence to move forward and produce and actually contribute value despite that little voice in your head telling you that maybe you shouldn't be there?
Yeah, I mean, over the last few years, I've kind of had to work on that confidence aspect. And a lot of it kind of has to do with the fact that I have to tell myself, I was chosen to be here out of thousands of people for a reason. Like, I know what I'm talking about, and I have the skill set to be able to learn things quickly. And, that's thanks to working on my startup, that's thanks to the Knowledge Society, that's thanks to all of like the other experiences that I've had. But the point is that I've had those experiences and I know that I can push through what I've done because I have done it before. So it's like a humbling experience to be able to go into an environment, like a new environment like that and not succeed at everything. And trust me, I'm not succeeding at a lot, but it's something that I continue to have to work on. But I keep telling myself, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the things that I have dedicated myself to in the past. And if I can push through those things, I can definitely push through this one, even if it seems impossible. Because I've told myself it's impossible before and still made it. So it's, I really enjoy the work that I do, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing it.
So during an internship, it's often a pretty transformational time. Like whether it's 2 months or 4 months, it really can change your worldview and your perspectives a lot. So is there any perspectives or just thoughts that you had about the world or about yourself that have significantly changed since joining SpaceX?
So at the beginning of this year, I set 2 kind of like guiding words. I don't really think New Year's resolutions make sense for me just because I feel like everything's always changing and there's no way that I can even predict what the year is going to be like. So I set 2 guiding words that were mindfulness and connection at the beginning of this year. And I found that kind of partway through my internship, I started losing the mindfulness aspect. And it was just because I felt myself getting into a routine of, I have to get all of this stuff done, but then I won't have any time for myself, but that's fine because I'm doing this other thing. And while I think that I will continue to dedicate myself 100% to improving at SpaceX, at Project Firefly, at all these different projects, I also have to realize that, my health will suffer and my mind will suffer if I don't take care of it. I wasn't getting great sleep. I was exercising, but it was to the point where I was like taking time away from just like relaxing and like chilling out. And I stopped reflecting as much, which made me kind of overthink a lot of things. So it was like really not a great kind of like halfway point. But since then, I've been able to tweak that and kind of adapt to it. And I think one thing that I learned throughout all of that process is that I can't just treat my body like it's one of many. I have to be able to really adapt and like take that initiative to start treating my body with more respect. And it's also the fact with like my mind is like, I know if I don't read, I'm going to lose my ability to think more clearly. I know if I don't challenge myself, like I usually do 30-day challenges all the time, but since starting this, I told myself I didn't have time, but I'm realizing now that that's definitely not the case because I've been able to do it while being at work, and it's really making me so much happier and so much more productive at work. So I think all of it kind of compounding is just I have to prioritize taking care of my health, even if that means, sacrificing a little bit of time at work, just because it's going to make the time that I do spend at work so much more productive and so much more worthwhile. And I'm going to have a better time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we asked our community what they were curious about before we jumped on this this episode. And one of the things was asking a little bit about how Elon Musk's personality and his, I guess you could say, his actions have a direct consequence on your role at SpaceX. So Elon Musk being someone who's definitely, as you describe, a mogul, definitely out there, definitely putting himself in a lot of different areas and being very public. How does that impact your day-to-day life at SpaceX, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, SpaceX, we kind of like to say that, like, there's so much more going on at SpaceX than Elon Musk, Elon is a very public personality. He has this kind of, like, reputation to uphold, and he will continue to do so, that's his prerogative. But at SpaceX, like, there's so many amazing things happening. Like, I think we just launched, like, the first Korean spacecraft, like, ever, like, first Korean, like, spacecraft on our rideshare program. But people don't really, like, see that a lot of the time. They kind of just see what Elon, like, posts. And I've talked to a lot of people, especially at the beginning of my internship, about what that is like. And everyone says, like, SpaceX is not Elon Musk. And so we like to, like, every time someone, I bring up SpaceX, everyone's like, oh, so like Elon. And I'm like, no, like, yes, Elon is a big part of the company, but he's not everything. And I think it's a really good idea to, like, be updated on SpaceX without having to, like, have Elon in your vision all the time. And just from working there for the short time that I've been there, there's so many amazing things happening. There's launches happening, like, every other day, it seems like. And it's insane, the kind of productivity that people are able to get up to with all these people working together. And I think that should be highlighted way more than the CEO should be in traditional media, I'd say.
So how does that impact, like, how does Elon Musk's presence or maybe lack of presence impact your own well-being or your own productivity at work?
I would say Elon, at a very, like, team level, yes, he manages a lot of stuff on, like, a high level, but he's never, like, looking over your shoulder, you know what I mean? Like, his presence or lack of presence at Hawthorne, it doesn't really impact my day-to-day, I would say. My team, my immediate team, and the team surrounding me that I have to talk to every day to get things done, those are the real people that impact whether or not work gets done. And I think that's kind of the same thing with most of what happens at Hawthorne, at SpaceX in general. It's really just like an individual team-by-team basis. And if we were thinking about what Elon is thinking about our work all the time, I would get nothing done. I would never submit anything because I would think everything is wrong all the time. So I think his presence is like a very, very, very small part of, like, something in the back of my mind. Like when he sends an email or something, we're like, ooh, he sent an email to everyone, But apart from that, it's really just I focus on my work with my team, and I focus on just my team as a whole, and it doesn't really affect anything else.
A lot of things have led you to being able to land your internship at SpaceX. So could you talk about more of the process or maybe your life before SpaceX and how it led you there?
Yeah. So I kind of developed a lot of my skills through the Knowledge Society. Like, basically, they're a human accelerator that helps students pursue different kinds of passions, whether that be entrepreneurship or biology or, whatever they may want to pursue. And so I started in there. I was doing hackathons, and I was meeting a lot of other like-minded people. When in Vegas, I don't feel like there's as much of a tech community, as much of a learning community that's committed to making changes. And so I started meeting people online, and then after that, I got connected to people that were interested in the same kind of camps that I was interested in. And so through all these hackathons, like, I started winning a few and, like, developing an idea. And at this point, by the summer last year, we had started working on Project Firefly, which was a huge, monumental piece of how I've developed as a person or an engineer. Even just, like, pitching, it really has helped with everything. And so through that, I was able to talk about that, and I fortunately landed a internship with NASA at their Seas Institute, which is essentially like a research-based internship that was studying meteorites and like how they enter the atmosphere. And I won't go into like too much detail, but that was a really transformative experience. I really enjoyed that. I got to pitch at the end with this presentation that we had all been a part of. And then alongside of that, I did my MIT apprenticeship, which was essentially just a bunch of women from all over the U.S. that got to participate in this online program where they sent us a bunch of material. They sent us like circuit boards and like all these wires and these lights, and we got to make different circuits. And the whole experience was just like amazing. That was probably my first like true engineering experience, like building things hands-on, and it was so awesome, especially meeting other young girls that were interested in the same things and having the same experience. I made friends for life, and this, like, some of the girls I still talk to like every day, which was so cool. So all that kind of like snowballed into me eventually being able to talk about all of that during my internship, like interviews. And at that point, Project Firefly had started doing more testing, and we had like a partner company. So all of it kind of, it's nice to see it kind of unfold in that way. It's like, oh yeah, like I've wanted this for so long, and everything that I've done has finally led me to my dream internship. And I'm just really glad that all of it paid off, I'll be honest.
So it sounds like each stage or every year you've sort of leapfrogged your previous year and done something even cooler.
Yeah, no, it's insane. Like my co-founder Jesse and I, we have a pact that basically says we have to one up every year. So I don't know how I'm gonna one up this year, I'll be honest, but we'll take it one step at a time.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Can you do an elevator pitch for Project Firefly?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. So Project Firefly is a new and innovative way to better contain wildfires. Essentially what we do is we equip drones with these things called vortex cannons, which are essentially pressurized air cannons that concentrate air into this tight moving ball of air. And once it reaches the outside atmosphere, it curls in on itself and forms a ring that's able to push and pull on the fire's fuel base in order to extinguish it. So there's a lot that goes in on that. That's kind of just a very general rundown. But what this helps with is the fact that a lot of wildfires have firefighters right up on the front lines, and they're using very rudimentary tools, just like hacksaws and bulldozers, to get rid of all this brush to keep the fire from spreading. But the fact of the matter is, wildfires, huge wildfires, can spread it up to a football field a second, which, the system that we have in place isn't sustainable at all. So by using drone technology, we eliminate that risk of firefighters being right there. We make a firewall very sustainable, and by using that swarm, it also improves response times, just because a lot of the time the wildfire gets too big for us to actually do anything at a fast pace. So that's kind of what we're aiming for, and we're doing testing right now, and hopefully it will be helping people in the next year. So we're excited about it for sure.
Cool. And what is Project Firefly at its peak? What is the grand vision for Project Firefly?
We envision this kind of drone technology being used in local fire stations all around the country. We want it to be something that is kind of the standard for fighting wildfires. The system that we have in place, it hasn't been innovated on in the last 4 decades, and that's a problem considering that wildfires keep getting hotter and drier, and climate change is not helping in the slightest. So it's really like an issue that we have to keep innovating on, and our real vision is just to be able to help as many people as we can implement it near urban environments. One of the biggest stories that Jessie tells is that, she was staying at this little cabin in the woods and saw a wildfire develop in front of her eyes and assumed that it would be taken care of, but it definitely wasn't. And that wildfire went on to burn for weeks. So it's just it's a system that doesn't work, and we don't know why it's working still. We don't know why it's not changing. So we will be the ones to change it.
I love that. So right now you're 18 years old. Where do you want to be when you're 50?
Oh, you can't ask me that. I have no clue. I envision myself as kind of being a serial entrepreneur of sorts. I want to dedicate myself to building a company for 3 to 5 years, sell it, move on to the next thing. I know that, like, me as a person, I don't like sticking on something for crazy long periods of time. Like, I know people that are very much the opposite. They want to build a company and see it from start to finish, and, like, they want to develop it to its highest potential. But me, I know that I don't know everything that there is to know, but there's so many things that I'm so passionate about that I would want to know a lot about. So that just gives me an excuse to build a company or solve a problem within a space and dedicate a part of my life to learning all there is to know, and then give it to someone that knows way more than me. So, like, I want to know everything. I'm always trying to learn things, hence the 30-day challenge kind of thing that I always do. And I feel like that kind of thing would be something I would be interested in. When I'm 50, hopefully I've visited a bunch of wonders around the world. And, you know, hopefully I have a beautiful family. And I don't think I'll be settled down at all. I don't think I'll ever settle down, I'll be honest. But I envision a very cool kind of, like, I'll have to one up every year until then. So by 50, I should be doing crazy stuff.
So Valkyrie, we talked about your internship at SpaceX. We talked about your process of getting there through NASA, MIT. We also talked about your startup project Firefly. What is a question that maybe I haven't asked you yet that you think would be cool to share to our listeners?
I would say, like, a lot of people will ask me about, like, my startups, but never, like, I guess, like, content creation kind of things. We have people that do content creation for Firefly, but right now, like as of right now, I'm getting more into, like, YouTube. I'm getting more into, like, I'm recording more episodes for my podcast, and I have a few seasons on there that have kind of just been all mindset focused. And this one is more, like, free-flowing, like, just things that I'm thinking about being an adult at 18 and how insane that is to think. I don't know if anyone really thinks about that, but the fact that I turned 18 and I'm like, oh, crap, like, I can vote. That's insane. We don't prepare kids enough for that at all. And especially young adults that go into college that, you know, are now adults. That kind of shift is an insane thing that we don't take enough time to explore. And so I'm kind of taking my podcast series and taking my YouTube channel into that era. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm, like, recording videos and editing them, and I'm really enjoying that. It's kind of like part of my free time. So I think that kind of stuff, if anyone wants to check that out, I'm really passionate about it, and I will probably continue to do it until I'm 50. So we'll keep going with it.
Thank you for tuning into the JobbyCast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, drop a like and subscribe. And if you want to know what it's really like to work at the world's coolest companies, make sure to drop us a follow on all of our socials. We post jobs all the time. Make sure you comment which company we should feature next. See you next week.